I wanted to have this opportunity to talk to you about the involvement and the leadership of the Department of the Interior in geospatial efforts across the federal government. We've taken a leadership role for a long time in the gathering and dissemination of geospatial data, in the provision of infrastructure to do that. We're the home to the Federal Geographic Data Committee, which I chair on behalf of Secretary Salazar. We're also home to the National Geospatial Program that I'm sure you're all familiar with, and of course the National Map, one of its primary components. The Obama administration is building on Interior's role and building on geospatial activities throughout the federal government. Most prominently, the administration is doing that through the geospatial platform, which I'm going to talk about. But more broadly than that, there are mission-specific geospatial activities going on in all of the departments. The Urban Waters program has a mapping tool that is specific to that particular application, and that's just one of hundreds of examples across the federal government. Within the Department of the Interior, we're also building up our geospatial capabilities. We are putting together a decision tool for landscape and resource management decision-making, a tool that will allow policymakers to have access, ready access to better information. As part of the America's Great Outdoors Initiative, we're putting together a Rivers Atlas. That initiative focuses as one of its areas on the connection of Americans and the connection of our cities to rivers. And we're putting together an atlas that will show access trails and all the different activities and the legal constraints on the rivers that we're focusing on in that program. So I'm going to talk about a couple of those efforts. First, the geospatial platform. We're very excited about the progress that is being made in connection with the geospatial platform. As you probably know, the platform will be a hub for all of the federal government's geospatial data and activities. And it's not just data sets that the platform is going to coordinate. I think the reason that we're excited about it is because the platform is going to allow us to provide better service and more cost-effective service. We're going to be able to reduce our costs because we'll have all of the information on a common platform. We released version 1 of the geospatial platform last fall. Anybody can access it. It's available at www.geoplatform.gov. And now the partner agencies in the Federal Geographic Data Committee are working together on enhancements that we're intending to roll out over the next few months. We're also working very hard on a business plan. There's intense effort through Ivan Deloach's group at the FGDC Secretariat and through all the partner agencies in the FGDC to figure out what our business plan is going to look like. And that involves designation of the managing partner for the geospatial platform and a funding strategy across the federal government so that we can ensure reliability and continuous funding. And that's a particular issue that we have to sort of wrestle to the ground, because in order to attract the data sets from all the federal agencies, they have to be assured that this is something that's going to have legs, that it's going to last. And so we need to ensure that we have a continuous funding stream and an appropriate allocation of funding across the federal agencies so that we've got continuity in the geospatial platform. And that's one of the things that we're working out right now. We're hoping to share that business plan as a draft with the National Geospatial Advisory Committee, our federal advisory committee to the FGDC. We're hoping to do that very soon, and we'll share it with other stakeholders like MAPS as well. I think that the development of the geospatial platform is particularly timely. I mean, for one thing, we're at a place now where the technology has advanced in things like cloud computing to make this kind of a project more cost-effective and successful. There's also huge interest in geospatial efforts across the federal government, in the legislative branch. You see it in Congressman Lamborn's bill that was introduced last week. The Map at Once use it many times. That's kind of indicative, I think, of the interest. We're also facing pretty significant scrutiny on federal government geospatial activities. There's a GAO review that is in progress right now, looking at the coordination of geospatial investments across the federal government and trying to ensure that any unnecessary duplication of effort is eliminated. And we think we have a very good story to tell with the advent of the geospatial platform and the interagency efforts that have been going on to coordinate geospatial activities. But I have said several times I welcome that GAO review because if there's stuff we're missing, if there's stuff we need to do better, presumably they're going to tell us about it, and then we can raise our own game. One additional component to the geospatial platform that I think you heard about this morning from Kevin is the inclusion of data acquisition as a service through the platform as well. So the central idea is that USGS will make available its geospatial product and services contract so that all the federal agencies can take advantage of a single contract and the economies of scale that that brings when they're looking for data acquisition. And that's the kind of good government effort that we're trying to do more of. So let me turn to the National Geospatial Program. They have in that program a new strategic plan that is sharpening the program's focus on topographic mapping and elevation data and hydrography. You heard about the National Enhanced Elevation Assessment from Kevin. You know, up until this point, we have been documenting the needs for that kind of data set across the country, and we've been cataloging the benefits that having that information would bring to users, state governments, local communities, farmers, anybody across the country. And it's striking that 72% of the data that we currently have, the elevation data, is more than 30 years old. And it's not at the resolution that we need now. We're meeting less than 10% of the needs that we've cataloged. I think MAPS members will have a significant role in this elevation assessment when we get it rolling. It's the private sector mapping firms that are the engine that produces the data that will support a huge number of business applications, whether it's precision agriculture from having very precise elevation data for fields, car navigation products, mitigating loss due to natural hazards, floods in particular. So we want to continue to work with you to build that national elevation data set, and we hope that MAPS will be a supporter of that effort. One other initiative in the National Map Program I wanted to mention is our focus on Alaska. It's probably an old hat or a tired comparison for you, but I know I was astounded to hear that we have better mapping on Mars than we do in Alaska. That's pretty amazing. It's also significant for us because the Department of the Interior has a unique relationship with Alaska. It's almost 60% federal land, and there are more Native people in Alaska than in any other state, and so we have trust responsibilities there. Alaska obviously is a key component of our country's energy future, and it's also become ground zero for climate change impacts. And we're seeing that in a number of different forms. We've got loss of sea ice, there is thawing of the permafrost, we have rising sea levels, eroding coastlines. That's posing problems of access to remote villages on the coast. We've got slumping, freezing and thawing and slumping of roads, and that's another access issue. And we've got real endangerment to coastal communities and native communities in particular. You probably read about the polar bear. There was an article in the Washington Post yesterday on the impacts of climate change on the polar bear. So there's a lot going on in terms of impacts of climate change in Alaska. And it has implications for a huge number of activities, from oil and gas development, fishing, tourism, subsistence living for the native communities, science. And all of that is occurring in an environmentally very fragile area. So we need maps, we need digital elevation data to support efforts to mitigate those impacts, and we need it now. So to meet those challenges, the USGS and the state of Alaska and the Alaska Native corporations and Interior and other federal agencies have come together in an effort to provide up-to-date geospatial information for the state of Alaska. It's a significant challenge. It will not be cheap. We are committed to doing it, though, because the benefits of having that data far exceed the cost, even though the cost is substantial. And we think it's only fair to bring the level of digital data in Alaska up to the level of the other 49 states. So this is another area where all of you and your colleagues in MAPS can be a part of that effort, and we're looking forward to doing that.